Oh yeah, everybody's favorite side dish, green bean casserole. We're putting mushrooms in ours, but we're gonna be making it with fresh green beans, one of my absolute favorite veggies, and a mushroom sauce, homemade with chicken stock, garlic, shallots or onion, herbs, and everybody's favorite, crispy onions. So let's get this going. Green bean casserole. And what's the best thing about green bean casserole? Onions. Let's face it, that's what everybody likes about green bean casserole. Those crunchy onions on top, the onions inside, because you gotta have onions inside too. And if you're one of those that use cream of mushroom soup or like mushrooms, we got mushrooms in there too. But this is probably one of the absolute standards of a Thanksgiving table. And if it's not there, people will get up and leave. But today we're gonna make my style of green bean casserole with fresh green beans and fresh mushrooms. And as you can see, a ton of onions. Let's get this party started. Let's go over the ingredients. I've got 2 tons of onions here that are sliced. Those are gonna be fried. Those are the ones that we're gonna put on top like you normally do. These onions are gonna be going into the casserole along with the shrooms. We've got green beans here. And then we've got basically ingredients for a mushroom sauce or a velouté. We've got our chicken stock. We're gonna add some milk to that, some cream. Of course, we've got our flour and our butter for our roux and some garlic and bay leaf. And then here I have a little bit of buttermilk. You can use milk, you can even use water if you want, and we'll get to that in a minute. That's for the frying of the onions. And I have Wondra flour here. If you don't have Wondra, you can use normal flour. You can even use a combination of cornstarch and flour. Not exactly the same thing, but Wondra flour is an amazing kind of ingredient, and we'll get to that too. It's special. So let's get this party started. We're gonna kick it off with frying them thar onions. Okay, crispy onion time. I've got about 4 cups or so, a quart of peanut oil heating up over the stove over there. And what we're gonna do is the onions first. Now you can go ahead and fry these like this, but they're not gonna end up being very crispy. What you need to do is coat them in something, and that's what we have the Wondra flour for. Wondra flour doesn't feel like, nor does it look like normal all-purpose or even bread flour or whole wheat or anything, because it's gone through a special process where all of the grains, if you will, right, the particles of flour have been pre-gelatinized and then dried out again. So this is what a lot of people use for gravies to get no lumps, right? That was the way, why it was actually first introduced. I don't know. I remember my mom using it. It must have been like back in the 50s or something, I don't know. But you can also use it for coating, and it's very nice for coating. The other thing I'm gonna use is a little bit of buttermilk. Buttermilk is a bit more viscous than, say, milk, but you can use milk too. And I'm not gonna submerge it, okay? Most recipes would you put like this amount of onion, they put an entire quart. But what I'm gonna do is just toss this, and all I'm doing is really just coating it with the buttermilk. So now you can see, right? It's just very lightly coated, right? But don't worry that you have a little bit pooling on the bottom, that's okay. Now, I'm gonna take the Wondra flour and I'm gonna use the whole thing. I figured I might. So that's 1 cup. Okay, 1 cup of the Wondra flour. That's just enough to give it a light coat. Now, that is gonna go in the hot oil after I wash my hands. So when you're deep frying, you want to make sure that you have a deep enough pot, because when you put something in there, right, you're going to get an explosion, if you will, right, of steam and bubbles and everything, and that's going to go. So you need something that's at least 3 times the depth of whatever your oil is. So that'll give it enough room to come up and then go back down again. If it overflows, don't want to go there. So we've got the oil up to about 365 to 375, can be anywhere in there. And then you don't want to just go kaplunk. You're going to start dropping them in there a little bit. a little at a time. A little here, a little there. It smells like onion rings in here. Now you can see that the oil is calming down. Why is that happening? Because all of that bubbling, that was all of that moisture in the onion that was hitting the oil. So what happens when water hits oil, right? That's what was going on. Now it's calming down and you can actually see the onions, and that's because there's a lot less moisture in the onion. And then that's when the browning starts to happen more. You got a little bit here, obviously, right? But it's still, they're still pretty blonde or white. Now I've kept this on high heat the whole time. Why? Because once I put the ingredients in, right, the temperature goes down. So if I had cranked down the heat at the beginning saying, oh, it's you know, cooking too fast or boiling too fast, and I reduced it, then that's when your temperature doesn't sustain itself hot enough, and then that's when your food starts to take on oil. When you're done deep frying something, you should pretty much have almost as much oil when you finish as you did when you began. I think just by eye, right? Again, I'm not using the recipe. I'm not looking and saying fry for so many minutes. I'm actually just doing it by eye. So now I'm going to put these onto, sprinkle them out onto paper towel. Don't just go boom like that. Kind of spread them out a little bit. And then when they come out, obviously you want to salt them just like you would French fries or onion rings or anything, right? And now you'll see in here, we've got remnants on the bottom. That's the crust that's fallen off, the flour and whatnot. And we don't want to keep that because that will end up burning eventually, right? So I have a skimmer here, very fine mesh skimmer, and you don't want that. I'm just going to put it on the side over here. So now we've got our oil pretty much ready to go again. See there? There we go again. This is probably going to end up being 3 batches. Okay, I'm going to finish up frying these. And when we're done with that, excuse me, we're going to get to the green beans. Water! Part 2 of the recipe, I have a pot, not this one, that one, of boiling water. And it's important to salt the water, even though we're going to dump the beans into a cold water bath. Remember, salty water, not salted water. It's got to taste like seawater, otherwise it's not salted. 2 pounds of green beans here. This is really cool. I got to show you this. See, it's sort of like a dull, almost avocado green color, right? You put them in the hot water just for a sec. You see that? See the difference? Isn't that cool? Look at that. That's called setting the color. Anyway, dump the beans, and we're gonna cook those 4 or 5 minutes, somewhere in there. What you want to do is after about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, somewhere in there, just kind of take one out and bite it. And if it's, I don't know, I hate to use the term al dente, but if it's still somewhat crunchy, but not like crunchy raw, right? If it's still got a little resistance to it and you think, oh, it could cook a little bit more, that's when you're done. So we're parboiling. And parboiling is when you pre-cook something halfway because you're going to finish cooking it in another process. So obviously these are going to go into the oven at some point, so that's when they're going to finish cooking. If you cooked them all the way at this point and then put them in the oven, that's when they get mushy and they turn in that kind of dull, ugly green. We're going to try and keep as much of that bright green as possible. Okay, it's been about 4 minutes actually, so just pull some out, right? And a little crunch. They cook a little more, but we're good. Now you got to hurry up and drain those. What I like to do is I basically just take the same pot, put it in there, put the beans back in, and then take cold water until they're completely covered. And then I'll throw some ice in there until they're nice and cold. And then, once those are nice and cold, I just get a bowl and line it with a paper towel and then drain the beans in there. And while you're making the mushroom sauce, the beans will be draining and then they're ready to go. The sauce. We're gonna start by sauteing the mushrooms. And as always, you must start with a stupid hot pan. This has been heating on high heat. I got about 3 tablespoons or so of oil. And look it's smoking already. It's smoking hot. At that point, you want to add your shrooms. So you see that, look at that. It's like, isn't this cool? This is amazing. Think about it. A mushroom is like what? 90% or more water, pretty much. And yet there's so much flavor. You're getting all that flavor out of something that's almost, pretty much 90% water. So now you can see, we really have not had very much liquid. You can see very, very little in there, but it's like as soon as it comes out, it's boiling off, which is exactly what we want. And now at that point, since most of the moisture and all the moisture pretty much is evaporated, the mushrooms are now gonna be caramelizing more in the fat. So we start with the fat and you're like, oh, it soaked it all up. I gotta add more. No, because it'll come out again and it'll brown. If you keep adding more oil, because mushrooms will, like a sponge, it'll soak up the oil. You think as soon as you put it in there, it's gone. But leave them, because the oil is in the mushroom and they'll take care of themselves. Don't have to keep adding any. You see, completely dry pan, look at that. Put them out on a plate. Pan goes back over heat. I've got it on high heat still. Don't go anywhere. Now we're gonna take our butter, and before it browns, I'm gonna add the onion. I'm gonna lower the heat a bit, because now these, we want to brown more slowly. Okay, once those are all separated, Diamond Kosher salt. Put some in there. This is key. We're going to sweat the onions and we're going to let them brown slowly. You don't want to rush it because you'll get a very different kind of flavor. So just, go with it. It won't take that long, maybe 20 minutes. Not a big deal. And if it starts to get too dry and you see a little bit too much browning on the bottom, the fond, then you can add just a little bit of water and scrape it up, deglaze, basically, and that'll end up mixing with the rest of the onion. If it happens, I'll show you. If it doesn't, at some point, I'll show you. Once the onions are brown, then the whole process speeds up. Oh, it smells so good. This is what we're looking for, okay? Not as dark as some people would cook their onions for onion soup, but pretty, get some good browning in there, okay? And you can see these two have also cooked down, right? I know what some people would consider extra fat. So at this point, garlic, 2 tablespoons. Holy crap, you're gonna put 2 tablespoons of garlic? Yeah.
Someone sleeping outside.
If everybody eats garlic, nobody can smell the garlic. Okay, so I've got 2 dry bay leaves. I would actually prefer fresh bay leaves in this one, but I don't have them. Now that the garlic has become fragrant, I'm gonna put in the flour. And again, you can, download the recipe and take a look at it, see how the quantities are and all that stuff. But okay, so there's our roux. It comes together pretty fast. Okay. And I'm not going to be like doing a brown roux or a peanut butter roux. I'm just like making a normal blonde roux. And at this point, I'm going to put the shrooms back in. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to add chicken stock. I'm feeling my way around the bottom of the pan for any parts that have sort of stuck a bit. Because when you put the flour in there, right, you're gonna get a little bit of sticking. So I want to scrape all that up, which is why, one of the reasons why I love these flat bottomed or whatever they're called, straight sided wooden spoons, because you can use it as a spoon, but you can also use it for scraping the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and add some milk. Okay, so, and then I add a little bit of cream at the end, not a lot, just to punch up the richness. And if you don't want to add the cream, don't add the cream. I'm stirring this as it's coming to a boil to prevent stickage. You don't want stickage in your sauce, also known as scorching, because as it's coming up to a boil, that's when it's more likely to scorch. Once it's at a boil, it's a little less likely. And you know, if you notice, I've salted at each stage, right? When we did the mushrooms, I seasoned the mushrooms. When we're doing the onion, season the onion. Now we're doing the sauce, I'm seasoning the sauce. If you don't season at each stage, you're not helping those flavors to build. You're just adding bland to bland to bland to bland. And then you go, oh, wow, I forgot to add salt. You add a bunch of salt at the end, it doesn't come out the same because it hasn't been added at each stage and cooked with that food at each stage. Comes out completely different. And I like a good amount of black pepper. Some people, because this is a bechamel, will add nutmeg because that's traditional in a bechamel. I don't particularly care for nutmeg in this preparation, but you can. And in fact, you can actually even add some Parmesan to the top of the casserole before you put the onions on if you want. A little cheesiness there. But I'm gonna go ahead and bring this to a boil, cover it and cook it for about 10 minutes. And at that point, we're ready to assemble the casserole and stick that puppy in the oven. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes and this has reduced a little bit, not very much, and it's thickened up. So what you want to do now is remove the bay leaf because that would be bad to swallow that. So now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with a 1/4 cup first. Now, I don't think we're going to need the whole 1/2 cup. So out of this whole thing, I'm just using a 1/4 cup. Sometimes I do use the whole 1/2 cup. Just depends on how much it's reduced. What's it look like? That is a nice texture. So you say, well, I don't understand. He says it's a nice texture. What am I looking for? I'll show you. You can grab a spoon, or I can use this too, because it's bigger, you can see it. And dunk it, right, in the sauce. And well, don't get any pieces of stuff on there. Okay, dunk it in the sauce and then run your finger across. It holds the line. Hold the line! Hold the line! If it holds the line, you know you're all right. If it keeps dripping down, then you have to either thicken it more or reduce it a little more till it's thicker. But that's it. At this point, I'm gonna turn it off. We got a lot of nice flavors in here, but like anything else, we need some sort of acid. Not a lot, and I'm not using lemon juice. Lemon juice would be a little bit too, I don't know, fruity for this dish. But vinegar. You can use vinegar to season things for acid, and not always lemon juice. For this, I'm using sherry vinegar. I'm not using balsamic because that's too sweet. We don't want to add sweet to this. Hold your finger over the bottle, okay? And then just let it, slide it back just a little till you get drips. And I'm probably to this whole thing gonna add maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. That's it. And at this point, throw in the green beans. And you can see we've got just enough sauce with just the right amount of green beans. You don't want it soupy, and you don't want it, definitely don't want it dry. Well, okay, I have a casserole here that's been lightly oiled. I know, I call it butter, cream, oil, I lightly oil this, I know. And spread it out evenly as possible. Sometimes all the sauce goes to one side depending on how you get it in there. Then what you can do is give it a little shake. That will even it out. Okay, now, what's next? I'll be right back. Remember these guys? I know, I can hear some of you moaning out there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is like the best part. And you know, I did 3 onions and it makes a little bit over what you need. Between you and everybody else tasting them, don't worry, it's all gonna go. And I like a relatively generous layer. I've got my oven up to 375. And that won't take as long as if you were starting it out of the refrigerator, right? Because it's really cold all the way through. It's gonna have to heat all the way through. So this won't take as long. This will probably take like, I don't know, about a half an hour until you see it slightly bubbling on the edges. And at that point, you're done. Just take it out and serve it. Okay, so if this was Thanksgiving dinner, this would be the point in the dinner where, you know, the turkey comes out, the mashed potatoes and the stuffing, and then everybody's like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. And then they put this on the table and everybody goes, yeah! Right? I don't know. Everybody look forward to this, which is fine. Anyway, okay, let's taste this puppy. It looks really pretty, doesn't it? Nice and brown on top. Take a nice scoop. Look at that. Ooh. Ooh. See, and you get, the green beans have still kept their color, and you get some of that really nice sauce, the mushroom sauce. I'm a sauce fanatic. How much are you putting on your plate, Dave? You're just tasting it. Okay, let's go. Here. Get some of the sauce and the green beans and those onions. It's hot. Damn, that's good. You know, the green beans are so good like this. They still have a little texture to them. They're not mushy. They've kept their integrity, as you say. And the mushroom sauce just like really kicks it over the top. Of course, you got the onions going on too. You guys have to download this recipe and make it. If you could like and share and subscribe and ring that little bell, I would really appreciate it. And write some comments. I want to hear what you have to say after you've made it. And send me your recipe too. I'd like to see what your recipes are like. If you're making this for Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. If you're making it just cause, happy just cause.